Welcome, fellow dreamers and doers, to another exhilarating episode of Entrepreneurship Unboxed, where we crack open the treasure trove of startup sagas and uncover the untold tales of triumph. I'm your host, AJ Alujadni, your guide through the labyrinth of entrepreneurial endeavors. Today, we have the electrifying Isaac Mashman in the hot seat. A maverick of multiple talents, entrepreneur, wordsmith, caffeine connoisseur, visionary creator, and captivating speaker. Isaac is the maestro behind Mashman Ventures, a beacon of brilliance in the realm of public relations. With ventures like Mashman Properties and Mashman Investments under his belt, and wielding his manifesto personal branding EA Manifesto on fame and influence, Isaac is not just rewriting the rules, he's revolutionizing them. Prepare to be dazzled as we dive into the whirlwind journey of how Isaac transformed his dreams into the dynamic reality of Mashman Ventures. Get ready to be inspired, enthralled, and empowered as we uncover the blueprint of his entrepreneurial journey. Isaac Mashman, it's so great to have you on the show today. I've been looking forward to our conversation. To start, please share a bit about your background and the journey that led you to launch Mashman Ventures.
Yeah, well, man, that's a big question. 100%. I'll skip over some of the background, some of the history, where I'm from, etc. I mean, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, raised in a single parent household. Saw my mom working a lot of jobs that she was overqualified for. Raised in large part by my grandparents too. But then going to school, I was an excellent student. I'm not one of these entrepreneurs that can say I was a D or F student. I was straight A's, top of the class. Excelled at any assignment that I was given for the most part. And heading into my senior year of high school, I realized that what was I going to go to college for? Get a marketing degree, work for some company, maybe. And I had those entrepreneurial tendencies previously, but I didn't really know that that was something I could turn into an entire business and make a living off of. And my mom, and to the dismay of everybody around me, my camp counselors, my family, they're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why aren't you going to college?" Because I was literally one test away from a full ride scholarship. And I decided to leave that aspiration and pursue business instead. I got involved with the industry of network marketing. I did 3 different companies 4 different times. I went from that into wanting to do social media management and do the stereotypical kind of work that a lot of people are doing online. And I went and tried my hand at drop shipping and 25 other businesses, not 25 literally, but at least 6. And in 2019, when I was living in California, I started to network with a lot of musicians and talent out there. And leading into 2022, when I went back to California, I decided to launch a record label, and I was managing artists and musical talent. But then guess what happened in 2020? The pandemic.
Yeah.
And when that launched, we had a concert that I was going to fly out to Indiana to attend. One of my artists was performing. It was pretty much sold out. He canvassed his city and handed out a bunch of tickets. But we decided to end it and to call it off because at that point, we weren't sure if COVID was going to kill everybody or if it was just like the common cold or what it was. And so we didn't want to take any chances. And thinking about the optics of that, we decided to call it off. And by doing so, the artist that I was managing at the time lost a lot of that passion and lost a lot of that care that he had towards music. And so at that point, I figured, do I really want to be in the music industry? The only way that people make money in the music industry a lot of times is by screwing another person over or going at scale. Because if you think about getting paid by streams, you have to get paid at scale. With a million streams might pay you a couple $1,000s, but what is that pathway from one stream to a million streams? That's a very long path. And in order to make any money from that, you would have to scale it up to a very large degree or have somebody pushing and propelling you forward. But if that's your sole stream of income, it's not really a profitable business. And aside from that, how would the artist make money, and how would I as the manager make money outside of maybe doing tours? But if it's COVID, you can't tour. So there's no plan there, because we didn't even get to that point of thinking about the business model and going really in depth. And so rather than being the Scooter Braun character, I kind of left that idea behind and left that. I mean, the page is still up on Instagram and everything else. I haven't spoken to the artist in a while, but I wanted to preface this and go into detail. I haven't talked about this really in a lot of detail very many times, but I saw a lot of people working with business owners, but not the business I saw a lot of people working with businesses, but not the business owner. That's what I'm getting at. And so I knew I didn't want to go back and do that kind of social media work for a company or trying to help you with your social media or manage it. I hate that done for you kind of thing. But I saw that there was this blue ocean market, and a lot of people wanted to build out their own personal brands online. And I saw that, man, you know, I became that go-to person in my friend group. Everybody would come to me and say, Isaac, I need your help with this. Can you help me with X, Y, and Z? What could I do to make my profile better? How can I gain my following? And after enough people approached me, and seeing that a lot of these big influencers at the time, I mean, think about Gary Vee or Ty Lopez, they were the ones that I was following in those early days. Not so much now, but they built out their personal brand to a very high level. And I figured, man, I've already done something right with my own personal brand. Why don't I apply that to other people and turn this into a business? And hence, Mashman Ventures was born in April of 2020. And over the past 4 years, it's been a wild ride with plenty of pivots, plenty of successes, plenty of downfalls. And glad to be sharing a little bit more of that story with you today, AJ.
What an amazing origin story already at such a young age, very inspiring. Let's go back to the early days of Mashman Media. What were some pivotal early moments or struggles you recall from those critical first few years of getting the business off the ground?
Yeah, well, I mean, thinking about that pivot, it wasn't really a big deal to me because I made so many changes in the past. But to the person listening to this, it might be thinking, man, if I'm making a jump for my career or jumping into a new business, it's scary. It is scary, especially the first couple of times. And you have to come to terms with the sacrifice of time that you've already put into something. And that's an aspect that I really haven't even thought about until now, where I had to say, Isaac, I know that I devoted the past 6 months or the past 3 months to trying to build this up, but big deal, leave it in the past. Appreciate that all of the work that you've done in the past has contributed to what you know today, to where you can now, you know, after the first couple brands that I was working on building, I knew what I needed to do to build out a new company brand, to get online, to build out the social media, to build out a following. And I also knew that by leveraging my personal brand, I could start really directing traffic and building this as something that I could take pride in. And thinking back to that initial time, it was scary because I didn't even know what the company was going to be defined as. I launched Mashman Ventures without even defining it as a public relations firm. It is a public relations firm today, but the first 6 months, it wasn't. It was undefined. And I was saying that, it's a multi-purpose company. And looking back, man, it's so stupid to think. But I said it was a multi-purpose company. Might as well be a paper towel. It's like you can use a paper towel for 25 uses. And 6 months in, I was seeking out, and I suppose you find the answers that you're looking for. You're looking for solutions. So your brain is going to be programmed to say, all right, I see a pathway forward. Because if you're not looking for a solution or you're not looking for something else, you're not going to find it a lot of the times.
Definitely.
And so I saw that there was this industry known as PR, public relations, and it was much more broad than just marketing and branding and social media. It encompasses all of that, frankly, and it works synchronistically with all those different industries and those different businesses. And I said, man, I think this is a public relations firm. I work with people to build out their reputations, to build out their personal brands, to build out their quality of name, to where their name means something. And in doing so, I defined it as a PR firm. Once I had that definition, I was able to start really positioning it as a PR firm. Because once you have the knowledge of what it is, you're able to position it and do things methodically to make it appear as such. And then you're able to fill in those gaps as you go. So I think a big part and a big learning lesson from this is you will not have all the answers to start with. And there are things and moments, even within the past year, where I've had to fill in the gaps again, and I've had to make pivots and changes.
Could you discuss a specific strategy or mindset shift that significantly impacted your business's success?
Let's talk about the most recent pivot. In the past, there was a threefold business model. We had the public relations retainer, where we'd work with somebody over a period of time to build out their personal brand. But the backbone of that was consulting, but it was measured off of time. And then we had the consulting model, to where people could pay us for individual a la carte consultations. And we had the training platform. But I realized that, and there were some issues in the past that came up with the business that really set us back, where it was a come to Jesus moment a couple different times of just how brutal business can be, and also how you need to be able to protect your business and protect yourself. But specifically talking about this pivot, I saw that a lot of the clients, we would go through and do consultations, and a consultation with us is going to be intense. We're going to give you homework. There's going to be things that you need to do in order to fulfill your end of the deal and what you're committing to when working with us. And working with me specifically, a lot of times I would do a consultation. It would be 2.5 hours, and it would be back to back. Just, hey, all right, do this, then that, and the other. And it would be recorded. They would have access to that. They would be able to go through, but it would still require a lot of work. Again, that's the downside of done with you versus done for you. Done for you, you're able to control a lot of that without relying on the client. But done with you, you're walking with them and guiding them. And I mean, thinking about consulting as an industry, the consultation industry, the management consulting especially, is worth over $11 billion. Like individual companies are making $11 to $13 billion just off of consultations and consulting clients. And the overall industry of consulting is worth 300 billion, if I'm not mistaken, but the largest public relations firm is only worth $1 billion. And so I saw these things and I was like, why not have the best of both worlds? But I wanted to eliminate the problem of, if we were doing a consultation and we needed to get another one of the books for 2 weeks from now or next month, and you didn't fulfill what you needed to do, then I would have to change the overall topic of what we needed to discuss and cover, right? And so I decided to eliminate that retainer and move 100% into the consulting realm with the training platform in addition to that. And that was after seeing a problem, I was able to find the solution. But even then, that required that leap of faith, which, as we discussed a minute ago, was necessary to even change the business or go from business to business, but even more so to make a change inside of the business, because it's something that you're not getting rid of, but it's growing and evolving. And a lot of times, I mean, thinking about working out, it creates pain.
In hindsight, what adjustments or decisions proved to be most beneficial for your business's growth?
I was overcomplicating the process, and I really came to appreciate the idea of consolidation. A lot of times we try to complicate things. So we think about, oh, we need to add
things.
Yeah, we need to add a bunch of features. We need to add a bunch of this, a bunch of that. We need to go ahead and sell this. We need to, and we get so caught up in this improving, and the intentions are right. We have the right intention, and that is to over deliver, to provide value, to do something great, to be someone great, because obviously you don't want to do something that's lackluster and deal with the consequences of, somebody calling you a scammer, for example. That's what a lot of entrepreneurs, it's like, if you don't deliver, you're going to deal with the consequences. And so I think
that's 100%.
Consolidating things, though, and realizing that you have to stay on track with the initial ROI of what somebody's getting when they're paying for working with you. So, for example, are you selling the feature? Or are you selling the solution? And that's something I had to do with the business. And this is just speaking, very intensively about Mashman Ventures. But I think with anything else, if you're trying to do 25 different things, you're not going to be able to focus on them. And Andrew Carnegie, who is, by all accounts, the richest man in America at one point in the 1800s. I mean, everybody knows about Andrew Carnegie. He, in a collection of essays that was compiled and published called The Empire of Business, he says that men have it backwards. Men want to put their eggs in multiple baskets, but what they should do is they should put their eggs in one basket and watch that basket. Yeah, and not many people know that. It seems common that there are so many cliches, but we only hear one side of the story. And thinking about that, I wanted to make sure that basket was secure before I moved into other things. And I suppose that you can put the equivalent to building a house. You want to make sure your house is strong and structurally sound, but at the end of the day, it's still providing shelter to you. And that's the main reason you have a house.
What role does personal branding play in your entrepreneurial journey, and how has it evolved over time?
Well, initially, I knew that I wanted to just be known as Isaac Mashman. I think that talking about...
But by the way, you're doing a great job, though.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But if you think about what your personal brand is, I always preface any answer that involves personal branding with a definition of what personal branding is, because there are so many misconceptions about it. And I have quite a philosophical approach to it. But your personal brand is you. You've had your personal brand from the moment you were born. A lot of people believe that your personal brand only exists online. It exists on social media, and they are extensions of your personal brand. They are marketing channels and vehicles to getting more people to know about you. But your personal brand exists on and offline. It's not a matter of, oh, social media disappears tomorrow, so do you. No, people are still going to know you. And so it's so much larger than what a lot of people believe. when you start thinking about it in that light, you're able to think, oh, well, everybody that I grew up with knows me. Okay, I have family, I have friends, I have coworkers. Why don't I start connecting with those people and starting to have that foundation built? And when I think back to what I wanted to initially be known as, I wanted to be known as Isaac Mashman. Now, what did that mean? Well, I was this young, ambitious kid. I was this entrepreneur that didn't necessarily know what that entailed, and that's okay. And I had all these different ambitions, and then I went into this creative mode, and then I did all these different business pivots. And at the end of the day, every time I did a pivot, I still had a strong collective group of people that supported me every step of the way because they supported me. They weren't supporting the business, they were supporting me. And thinking about that, once I committed to Mashman Ventures, I was able to market and promote myself as, all right, no, I'm Isaac Mashman. You still want to know me for the coffee addict, for the personable person, or the person who might crack jokes or might be, a little aggressive at times. But that's okay. Those are characteristics of me. But I also wanted to be positioned as a public relations expert, as somebody who you could view as a personal brand authority. And that's when I started to take those action steps, such as getting onto podcasts like this and having a conversation, because you cannot fake what you know on a podcast. It's much more difficult to fake something if
Definitely.
you're in person and live. I mean, we're live, right? If I'm stuttering 1,000 times and I don't know what I'm talking about, you guys are going to be able to see through it. And so it keeps you committed to this expansion. It keeps you committed to your promises. And I was also able to devote time to getting onto articles and building out my website and building out my social media following and creating content and all of these other steps, which, I mean, we could get into the strategy as specific as you would like, but to build myself up as that public figure. And I think that a lot of people today, if they want to be able to stand out, they have to be a public figure. And it's not from a narcissistic perspective. It's from this is essential to my growth and success, because you are fighting against 4 billion other people on the internet. That is a lot of attention. That is a lot of competition. That is a lot of eyeballs. If there are 4 billion people on the internet, you're talking about 8 billion eyeballs and a lot of just, other creators that are probably brilliant too. And so you do not have to be the most brilliant person. You don't have to be the person who is the most talented or has the most money or resources, but you have to put yourself out there to start making that name for yourself, AJ.
Let's delve into that strategy a bit more. Last time when Instagram and Twitter went down, I remember seeing one of your posts advocating for the power of omnipresence. It really caught my attention. Could you share more about what omnipresence means to you and how you leverage it in your business endeavors?
Yeah, you're talking about my mention of omnipresence. Now,
Yeah,
omnipresence
though.
is typically talked to or mentioned when we're having a conversation about God. God is everywhere all the time. Now, in the least sacrilegious way possible, you need to be omnipresent with your personal brand. You need to be everywhere all the time. So if Instagram and Facebook went down or disappeared or got deleted, or I think now what is in the news and would be worth mentioning is TikTok. TikTok is going to probably get banned in America in the next 6 months if it doesn't get sold. But I have a feeling they're going to just ban TikTok, and all of these creators that have millions and millions of followers on TikTok are going to be out of luck, because if they're only relying on TikTok to build out their audience, if that gets deleted and they don't have their Instagrams, they don't have a YouTube channel, they don't have a following on Facebook or a following on other platforms, well, there goes all their hard work. So whenever you're building out your personal brand online and social media specifically, you need to be building a diversified audience. I mean, you and I are connected not only on Instagram, but also Facebook. And after this conversation, we'll be connected on Twitter or LinkedIn or everywhere else. I think we're already on LinkedIn. But thinking about that, you're able to maintain those relationships. And every single time somebody views you on one platform and then they go to another one and they see your face, I've had so many friends say, Isaac, how can I forget about you? It's like you're everywhere. You open up, I open up my page and I see you here. And then I go to the different app and I see you there. And that's done purposefully. That's done intentionally to create this awareness around me, around what I'm doing. And that right there, building out that omnipresent personal brand is something that I think a lot of people overlook, because they get told this information of, oh, only build on one place, focus on one place. And I think that there is a difference between focusing on one platform and only being on one platform. But I think that even then you need to direct a little bit of your focus. And this goes contrary to the idea of watching one basket. Now I'm telling you to diversify your baskets. And that right there, I think that there needs to be a distinction between this is business and this is marketing, because this is what it is. It's an aspect of business, but social media is not business. And having multiple marketing channels means that multiple algorithms are working in your favor. It means that you're able to reach new people that might not be on one other platform. I mean, a lot of people that I know aren't on Facebook, but they're on Instagram. And a lot of the people I have on Instagram are on Twitter. And so you're connecting with these people continuously. You're letting the algorithms work for you. And you're also building out your credibility, because if somebody finds you for the first time and they see, oh, this guy has 100,000 followers, but he has an audience on 6 different platforms, he must be doing something right. And it's much more difficult to fake your following on 6 places versus faking your following on one, because you could buy your followers on Instagram and say, oh, I have 100,000, but they're fake. And so there's so many nuances and things that we could go down and talk about, but that would be the biggest strategy of building an omnipresent personal brand, and same with your business.
Can you elaborate on a project or investment that didn't go as planned and what you learned from that experience?
I could talk about the investment into a person, which would be something that I think would be good, because I think a lot of the investments, I view my investing strategy with anything, with stocks or property or anything, it's long term. You know, when I'm buying property, I'm not looking to ever sell a property. That is a very aggressive approach, but I'm thinking if I own it once, I might as well keep it. And so with Mashman Properties, as I'm building that and acquiring properties, I'm not going to be selling anything. And same with Mashman Investments. When I'm making more investments, this is going to be a main focus for later this year, moving into 2025. I'm going to be looking into the people and investing into projects that, yes, I see a lot of growth potential in, but also ambitious founders that I can count on, that don't complain, that have grit, that are able to push forward. But I'm thinking about some investments into clients and thinking through, I'm not obviously mentioning anybody's names, but I think that there have been circumstances where my gut has told me something and I've ignored that feeling. And I'm like, for example, being told a personal story about going to a bank and complaining, or making a big deal out of something that should have been nothing. And I had this gut feeling saying, Isaac, this guy's going to cause you issues in the future. This is going to be problematic. But after the invoice is already paid and after you've already been working together for 2 months, it's like you're thinking, all right, maybe I'll just suck it up. I'll deal with it. And then, sure enough, a couple months went by, and this goes back to the retainer issue of no commitment, a failure to fulfilling that into the deal, that into the bargain. That was an issue. And so I think that whenever you're making investments into people, you have to realize that people are fickle. People are going to be changing. People are going to be emotional. I mean, 80% of sales is emotion based. And so I think that whenever you're closing a client, whenever you're working with people, you need to be closing off of that 20% of logic. You need to be able to say, hey, this is going to make sense for you. This isn't just, I'm not trying to appeal to your ego. I'm not trying to appeal to your sense of passion or your interest, but this logically makes sense for you, makes sense for your ambition. It makes sense for your business for X, Y, and Z reasons. And so appealing to that logical side of that sales process will eliminate a lot of those emotional purchases that will be detrimental to the long-term success that you have. And I was just listening to Andrew Frisella on his podcast, and he got asked that question about, you know, how to avoid that high pressure sales tactic, which a lot of people are pushing today. And he mentions just that. He mentions that, you know, if you're making all of those emotional purchases, you have to basically be pushing them to do something that is not going to hurt them, because as a salesperson, you are able to manipulate that emotion to your benefit and to your gain. And so realizing that you shouldn't is a high level of maturity and progression that you need to be operating at.
Such valuable insights there. Let's lighten it up now for a quick lightning round of fun questions to get to know you better. What's your favorite business or non-business book?
It would have to be Empire of Business by Andrew Carnegie. I absolutely love that book. It was published 100 years ago. Not many people know about it. Very few people know about it. And it is one of the best books of all time. I think that if I was to only be given that book, that's all I need.
Top 3 podcasts you listen to?
So I listened to Real AF with Andy Frisella, which was previously the MFCEO project. He's quite aggressive. Some people love him, some people hate him, but I absolutely love his show. Ed Milet is another one. I really adore Ed's approach. He's a little bit softer than a lot of the people that I typically would listen to, but I think that he has a diverse array of conversations with guests that are people that I wouldn't traditionally listen to, like athletes, for example, or psychologists, or he's interviewed like medical doctors, etc. A big health focus. And then the third podcast that I also been listening to quite a bit is Jordan B. Peterson, which again is controversial in of itself, but I think that
Mm.
getting that you
Yeah.
already know.
Yeah.
But I do not agree with everything he says, and I
Good.
agree with a good portion of it, but not everything. And I think that
Definitely.
developing multiple perspectives and seeing multiple perspectives allows you to come to your own deduction that is a little bit more, again, logic based rather than just operating out of pure emotion.
How do you stay motivated and continue to evolve in an ever-changing business landscape?
This is actually something that I've been thinking about over the past 2 days quite a bit, because there are obviously going to be moments where you feel less motivated, where you feel like everything's just going wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah, and I think that those little things, those little like aspects of, maybe a podcast studio taking an extra 10 minutes to get going, it's like those are little annoying things that stack up over time. And so I think that not a letting those things get to you is important. But I'm thinking about the two different energies that you can operate from. You can operate from that dark energy of like, man, oh, he said something, he said I couldn't do it, let me go do it,
Do it.
and being like, screw you, like, all right, I've operated a large part from that energy and over the past couple of years. And it was either for example, my stepfather in those early years, I've talked about this quite a bit on other shows, where I would be like, all right, you said I couldn't do this growing up. Well, screw you. Guess what? And then being able to validate the successes. And I think that one of the big changes that I'm going to be doing moving forward is becoming somebody who operates from the standpoint of let me build something great, and trying to move a little bit away from that darker energy, because you can get consumed by it. I mean, you think about Star Wars, if you've ever seen Star Wars, the Sith get consumed by that darkness. And I think that having that on command, one of the most controversial figures in Star Wars is Anakin Skywalker. And not to get into such a nerd conversation, but he has both of those conflicting sides, which are pulling at him. And I think being aware of that is important. So when you want to stay motivated, I think having something that you want to build that is great is wonderful. And also having the side of you that's like, I'm going to prove you wrong is also good.
What legacy do you hope to leave through your work?
I'm not really looking to leave a legacy.
Definitely.
Now, the reason I say that is I believe that to pay attention to your legacy while you're alive is to take away from the time that you have today. I'm going to be dead. So the biggest thing that I want to do is ultimately have kids that I'm able to pass the Mashman name down to, and an empire that they can take over and have that succession approach. But I do not want to be focusing on, oh, what will Isaac be remembered for? I already know that with my actions, I'll have that remembrance, but I would rather have that today when I'm alive. I mean, you think about an artist who is dead, a lot of the artists that we study about today, they were not known when they were alive. They were laughed at, they were mimicked, they were ridiculed, and then they die, and 600 years later, now we're like, oh my God, look at this artist, look at this author, look at this book. And it's like people would call Shakespeare crazy when Shakespeare was alive, or Van Gogh, and so I think that part of that is building that recognition while I'm alive that will naturally follow me in death. And I think that conscious reputation management is something that you have to do, things that contribute to your reputation in a positive light. And to these conversations, I mean, this podcast recording can be saved and continue to be listened to 200 years from now when we're both gone. And I think that is the longevity of the internet, assuming the internet doesn't just disappear 100 years from now or some solar flare wipes out the planet. But I think that, man, I'm thinking about how much of a complicated question that is, though, because there's so many other aspects of it, to where I think that knowing that I did something that is worth remembering is going to be pushing me forward. And I think that goes back to the previous question, what motivates me? And I'm not somebody who's motivated by legacy, but I am motivated by doing something great while I'm alive.
How do you approach risk-taking in your business decisions? And what advice would you give to those hesitant to take risks?
Don't do anything that's stupid. I think that a lot of, I think that that's really the only way you can really screw up. And same with building out your reputation. The only way that you can ruin your reputation beyond a pair is doing something so egregious, people just look at you with disgust. And I mean, I think that with every risk, there's going to be a pro benefit and there's going to be a downside to it. And I think measuring that out and thinking, all right, well, what can I gain from this is an effective approach. I mean, thinking about my own business and bringing a person on or bringing a consultant on, I realize that now I'm putting a little bit of my trust and a little bit of my business's good faith in the hands of a new consultant or a new person, a new member of my team. And depending on how they behave is going to directly reflect on the company, but that is a risk. And so you start with those initial risks and then you build your way up. But at the same point, I think willing to go all in and just take that leap of faith is an effective but risky strategy that people should be adopting. I'm not saying leave your job and go live on the streets, but I've booked one-way plane tickets in the past. I've flown to Las Vegas without a round trip. I went to France without a ticket home. I've done those things because I knew that the worst that would happen is, well, this is going to suck, but I'll be all right. I'll go car hop. I'll do whatever I need to do to get back home if I want to. And in retrospect, those risks developed my character because they developed my trust in myself. And once you trust yourself, you know that you're able to be all right no matter what happens.
Such great wisdom. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice before you started Mashman Ventures, what would you tell yourself?
My genuine answer is nothing. I would let myself fall and do everything else. I would do that. Now, it's not the answer you're looking for, but if I had to choose something, it would say to start speaking from stage sooner and doing podcasts like this. I did podcasting back then, but I would do it a lot more aggressively. I would try to get in front of as many people as possible while being the person who is the focus point. And whether that's talking about my story and talking about, because you don't start knowing everything. Like you don't start out as an expert. You have to develop yourself into. And even then, I do not consider myself an expert. I let other people say that for me. And I think that's a big thing as well. I mean, unless you're a lawyer, and you have to go through 8 years of law school, the term expert can be thrown around loosely. And I would rather somebody else validate my knowledge and serve as that edification than me trying to convince you that I'm somebody worth paying attention to. And so I would say to younger Isaac, get on more stages sooner, sell to more people at scale, and that will ultimately allow you to be known by many and get to your goals sooner.
Isaac, thank you again for your time today. I learned so much from your stories and insights, and I know our listeners did too. Wishing you continued success and looking forward to watching Mashman Ventures grow.
Thank you, AJ. It was a pleasure, my friend.
A resounding round of applause for the one and only Isaac Mashman for generously sharing the gems of his entrepreneurial saga. Dive deeper into the world of branding brilliance at isaacmashman.com and ignite your own journey to greatness. Join us next week as we unbox yet another riveting founder tale. Until then, remember, stay scrappy, keep dreaming big, and let your entrepreneurial spirit soar.